Hello, welcome to the Asian Pivot, Resilience, Rivalry, and the New Global Order. I'm your host, Rene Hernandez, and today we will be talking about Asia. Welcome to today's episode of Global Business Insights. Today, we're looking at the most dynamic region in the planet, Asia. If you want to understand international business today, you have to look at the East. In 2024, Asia accumulated for nearly 60% of global growth. But as we move into 2025 and 2026, the Asian model, traditionally built on the being the world factory, is facing a massive reset. According to the latest IMF data, the region is bracing down for a slowdown, with a growth projected to dip to 3.9% as global trade tensions and high US tariffs reshape the landscape. Now, let's move to the challenge, or as it is called, the noodle ball. Let me ask you this: why the sudden turbulence? Well, this could be a mix of geography and geopolitics. Up first, we have the fragmentation of trade. For decades, Asian integration has been market led, meaning it was driven by private companies building supply chains rather than top down political institutions like the USA. The ADB working paper highlights that while this made Asia flexible, it also created a noodle ball, yummy, of overlapping trade agreements that can be heard from businesses to navigate. Now, those supply chains are under fire. Surging trade tensions between the US and China are forcing a rethink. The IMF suggests that for Asia to survive this, it must pivot from export led growth to domestic demand. China is already attempting this, shifting from heavy investment to high value services and domestic consumption, even as its growth moderates to around 4.5%. Now, let's zoom in on the geography. Southeast Asia is the great game, as it's called, uh, of this century. As highlighted in the Geopolitics of Southeast Asia video, countries like Vietnam and Thailand are strategically positioning themselves between major powers. Singapore remains the region's digital and financial anchor, while Indonesia acts as a regional heavyweight with its massive domestic market and manufacturing potential. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. The World Bank's East Asia and Pacific update warns of a massive job gap. Over the next decade, 320 million people in the region will reach working age, but only 110 million jobs are currently projected to be created. For international business, this means a huge talent pool is available, but it also signals potential social instability if growth isn't inclusive. We also can't ignore the physical geography. Asia is home to 13 of the world's 30 most climate vulnerable countries, and the World Bank notes that since the year 2000, the region has endured 70% of the world's natural disasters. Add to this a rapidly aging population in China, Japan, and Korea, and you will see the challenge. How do you stay the world's engine while your workforce shrinks and your environment becomes more volatile? The answer lies in a digital transformation and green energy. So, Asia isn't just a place to manufacture cheap goods anymore, it's a region of a strategic rebalancing. Success for future managers will depend on navigating the noodle ball of trade deals like RCEP and ASEAN, understanding the shift toward intra-regional trade and building resilience against both geopolitical shocks and climate change. Asia is moving from being the factory of the world to the market of the world. So, this was all, and thank you for listening.